Hello everybody, it's your friendly digital technology librarian, Christy here. We've reached another Friday, so of course I have another Film Rec Friday ready for everybody out there. Now, I want to preface this by saying I had such an incredible time putting together this particular list for you. This month is Native American Heritage Month, a month obviously designed to celebrate the rich and diverse culture of Native and Indigenous peoples here. It's also to acknowledge important contributions of Native peoples throughout the years and just expand general awareness of the unique challenges that they have to face. And what better way than to sort of look at their depiction in what is essentially a renaissance of Indigenous people driven films. Um, Obviously, there have been decades and decades of depictions of Native Americans through movies that have been less than genuine. And we, starting with, I would say, the 90s, seen a real development of independent minded movies created, directed, performed by Indigenous people that really tell a genuine story that is believable, that is authentic, that is just like any other believable, authentic film, that doesn't sort of play into all the stereotypes that I think for generations we've seen depicted um, about Native Americans in other movies that we've had available to us. Now, just like always, these are available entirely for free with the use of your Milan-Berlin library card. I had sort of peripherally heard of several of these films and wanted to see them for years, but had never had the chance, primarily because there's just not easy access to a lot of independent movies, which is why these video streaming services are so incredible and why you should absolutely take advantage of them. These movies that are unlikely to get much screen time at your local Cineplex can be had very easily through things like Hoopla Digital and Canopy. So without any further ado, I want to go ahead and dive into these recs. I tried to get a nice variety of types of films, but at the heart, they're very much movies that I think will absolutely move you, that are evocative, that tell incredible, rich stories, and have amazing characters in them. And I think you will definitely find some semblance of similarity to them, something relatable, regardless. So again, without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the Rex. Okay, let's dive into my first recommendation, which is available on Hoopla Digital, and that is for the documentary Real Injun from 2009. Now, this documentary was probably one of my absolute favorite movies from this entire pool of recs. It's a feature-length doc, but it doesn't feel particularly long. It moves really quickly. It's incredibly informative and educational without being dry in any way, shape, or form. I mean, I laughed out loud. I literally laughed out loud a number of times. And it still manages to be enjoyable while shedding light on an industry that was pretty responsible for multiple generations viewpoint of a particular people that was unbelievably erroneous and so far removed from the reality that it kind of boggles the mind. Anyway, Real Injun definitely gives you a great spread of the history of the depiction of Native Americans on film. Whether we're talking about the silent film era, whether we're talking about like the big Western craze in early golden era Hollywood with, say, like John Wayne and all of these big actors playing these big tough cowboys facing off against the Injuns. Whether you're talking about, you know, the depiction of the sort of like hippie Native American from the 60s, or you're moving right along into sort of Dances with Wolves, white saviorism kind of era film, all the way to, you know, your late 90s renaissance of Native American directed, written, performed film that we're starting to really see take hold of these stereotypes and turn them on their heads. I mean, it runs that whole era, or it runs all of those eras, and gives you a really good sense of what's going on. Um, the people that are interviewed, they come from such a wide diverse sort of background. You have actors they've interviewed, uh, both native and white actors who experience, say, like the golden era of Hollywood. You have uh, scholars, you have comedians that are being interviewed, you've got historians, activists. I mean, it's the people we get to hear from are just so interesting, and they have this perspective that I think a lot of us don't necessarily get to hear very often. And, you know, with the lack of a lot of mainstream examples of Native American life, I think those insights are absolutely vital to sort of seeing an expression of contemporary Native American life. Um, and being able to hear from them, hear what they have to say about the history, about the growth of this new independent spirited minded uh, film surge, it's really exciting, honestly, to someone like me who loves the history of film in general, to see um, this group of people being able to take ownership of their depiction is just, it's just really, really exciting. As I was saying, it's just a fun documentary to watch, despite like these sort of like cringe-worthy moments from the decades before. It's still just like, it's just a good documentary to watch. I loved hearing Charlie Hill, who was a famous comedian of Native descent, uh, talk about the way he perceived different depictions throughout the years, and seeing clips of him perform, reactions to audiences that were probably not filled with people of color, and being able to joke with them and sort of talk about his life experience, to hear from, say, like massive actors in the Western movie industry, say like Clint Eastwood, talking about his experience playing in those films of with the cowboys and Indians kinds of performances. Um, Hearing him talk about his experiences with specific actors that he still remembers and still uh, is able to talk about easily, and it's just a really, really interesting insight into those little pockets of history. So yeah, if you like film history in general, if you are interested in the depiction of people of color in movies throughout the years, if you are interested in, you know, filmmaking, that's the other thing that was really cool, listening to some of the native filmmakers and like the process, especially in the contemporary films where, you know, it's just like a whole new world. um, Definitely check out Real Injun. It is absolutely fascinating, a little bit horrifying, and certainly uncomfortable in spots, but well worth it. And it's a fun time while you're watching it, even with that sort of visceral, sort of secondhand embarrassment, those kinds of moments. It's still so worth watching. So please, if there's no other film that you check out Real Injun. Honestly, I think it's probably one of the better documentaries I've watched in the last few months. So highly, Highly recommended. Okay, another recommendation from Hoopla Digital is for the film Four Sheets to the Wind from 2007. Four Sheets to the Wind is a dramedy coming of age tale that I really found myself being so moved by. I think because it has this strong blend of both drama and comedy throughout it. It's not a laugh out loud kind of movie at all. At least I didn't find it laugh out loud funny, but there's this sense of humor about certain scenes that stuck with me long after I finished watching. It's the story of Kufe Smallhill, who's played by Cody Lightning. And let me say, Cody Lightning does an incredible job in this small role. It's it's very naturalistic. It's at times feels like it's not even an actor playing a role, it, and it's very quiet. The movie itself is not a big brash film. There's not like crazy action going on. It's just this quiet slice of life that I found strangely moving in a lot of weird ways. Um, so Kufe has always had a rather challenging relationship with his father, who's very quiet, who I think there was always some distance to. And when the father dies, things just sort of weirdly get even more complicated. That's not a spoiler, by the way. The father's death is in the trailer. It's a strong, vital part of the storyline. And his death, along with like the things that immediately follow, really are kind of the impetus of Kufe really deciding to try and figure out who he is as a man as opposed to a boy, where his place is in the world, what is his worth, what is his value, and it sort of urges him to explore beyond the edges of his universe that he had built for him beforehand. And I'm always interested in these sorts of movies where young people start to leave the nest. And I'm especially fascinated by stories like this that seem so small. It's not like he has plans to take over the world. His ambitions are not huge. It's not like he, intends to be some giant figure, like some huge actor or anything. No, he just wants to know who he is. And those little moments in this small film are so genuine, so real. And I think that's one of the things that I really like the most about this film. Like, there are some moments that are kind of a little bit ridiculous. And those are the moments that sort of would take me out of the smallness of the film, that would make me go, that's an interesting choice, but not in a like negative way at all. It still felt organic to the character. It still felt like something that this character that we're seeing would 100% do. It's just slightly jarring. And I think that actually also adds to what makes this movie kind of interesting. It's not just one note. You have like these tiny glimpses of quirk and odd that really make it something special. So if you're looking for a coming of age tale that is a little off the beaten path, that explores a life that I think a lot of us would never experience, that a lot of us aren't particularly familiar with, but that still will resonate no matter what, because at the heart of it, coming of age tales are always going to be at least a little bit universal, because we've all flown the nest at some point. Anyway, if you're looking for something that is familiar in that sense, but also foreign in the sense of an experience that you might not have, that's just really well acted. Again, I was very impressed with the young man who played Kufe. Check out Four Sheets to the Wind. It is a very, very good film. And there's something really charming and beautiful about it too. So again, Four Sheets to the Wind, available on Hoopla Digital. All right, moving right along to our Canopy recommendations, I want to jump into those with the film Throat Song from 2011. Throat Song is a short film. It is less than 20 minutes, but boy, does it pack those 20 minutes with crazy emotional scenes. Um, it's been several days since I first saw this, and I still will periodically find myself thinking of scenes from this movie and feeling as affected now as I did while I was watching it. Um, Throat Song is a hard film to watch. It's beautiful. It absolutely will move you in places. It will absolutely force you to have an emotional response, but it is a challenge to watch because some of these scenes are very, very difficult. Um, Throat Song tells the story of Ipik. She's a young Inuit woman who is just starting a job with the Department of Justice. Her position is to sort of connect with Native people who have made statements, and to speak with them about the statements and to verify, if what they said has been recorded properly, if they are still happy with their statements, if they want to change anything. And her interactions with these different people who have been touched by violence, by other really horrible experiences, sort of makes her recall her own experiences with, say, domestic violence, with sexual assault. I mean, this is a young woman who, when we first see her, seems like anyone else who's just going through their day, but that's kind of the whole point, that anyone could be living with the aftermath of these traumas. And it's just, like I said, it's just so impactful. We get these scenes where she's speaking with these women, and they are relegating their ordeal, and those are juxtaposed with scenes from her own life, things that she has experienced, is experiencing, and she just keeps moving on, story to story, situation to situation. And it's challenging to watch. It's difficult to even talk about, like, without getting emotional, because it's that real. Everything seems so in the moment. You feel so present in her situation. And I don't know if it's the way it's filmed or the way sound is also used within this particular film. Throat Song is a style of singing that she clearly had made a huge impact on her in her early childhood, that made her happy, that connected her to her family, to her people, and then at some point she loses that connection, and that loss is also mimicked by the sound in the film. You get these glimpses of her history when she's happy, and you have this throat singing going on, and then there's this weird lack of sound in all of these tragic moments and instances where it's like a very clear metaphor for her current existence. um and it does feel heavy-handed. Isn't the right word. That's absolutely not the right. It does feel very clear, though. This is what is happening. This is why it's happening. And it's just hard not to get pulled in by that. It's actually kind of an amazing feat of sound editing, I think. How that throat singing is as much a character as anybody that we meet within this movie. The young woman who plays Ipik she just does an incredible job with this role. She doesn't say very much. I mean, when she's talking to these other women, it's just a quick statement and then move on, all of these steps. But we don't hear her say much to give a lot of her character. Everything is expressed on her face, though. Like, it's just, she tells an entire story with just the way her head tilts, or it's just a really, really exceptional piece of acting. And if for no other reason, I definitely recommend you check it out if you like good performances. Ipik Sot Friesen is the young woman who plays Ipik, and she's just incredible. So if you're looking for something that is evocative, that while a challenging watch is definitely emotionally present, if you're looking for really brilliant acting, if you like movies with tension, because like I was saying, you get these scenes that juxtapose each other and it just ramps up the tension and you have no idea what's really going to happen at the end. Like, I was very concerned. So if you like movies like that have that tension to them, check out Throat Song. It's, I think, 18 minutes long, so it's not gonna take up all of your evening. I strongly recommend it. It was definitely a movie that I was deeply, deeply affected by, and I continue to feel affected by. So again, available on Canopy, Throat Song, highly recommend it. Okay, my next Canopy recommendation is for the film Songs My Brothers Taught Me. This is a 2015 film, and this particular movie has been on my to-be watch list for quite some time now. It's the directorial debut of Chloe Zhao, who I am a massive, massive fan of. You might be familiar with her more recent work, Nomadland. Nomadland, also an incredible movie. Garnered a huge amount of critical success. That was one of the movies that made her only the second woman in the history of the Oscars to win Best Director, which is kind of crazy if you think about how old the Oscars are and how many film directors are female. But yeah, her work is just so amazing. She has a very specific style, and this gift for character work. I think for me, directors who are really able to create characters and to pull performances out of actors that will resonate with anyone, no matter how removed they might be from this particular character, it's just such an incredible gift. I've watched a few of Zhao's films at this point, and I know I'm going to be following her career because I am definitely one of those people who like movies for character-driven plots instead of story-driven plots. I love character development, and she's just so good at pulling those kinds of performances out of actors. And Songs My Brothers Taught Me, despite being her first film, is already an example of how good she is at that. This movie tells the story of a young man named Johnny. Johnny lives on the Pine Ridge Reservation, which is quite a famous reservation, has been depicted in many, many movies for not necessarily great reasons. He lives with his single mother and his younger sister, who he absolutely adores. And then he's hit with the death of his absentee cowboy father, and things just come to a head at that point. You know, he didn't have a huge amount of drive prior to the circumstance, or at least he didn't have a huge amount of ambition. Let me put it that way. That's a better way to put it. And then when his father dies, things become apparent to him that were not apparent prior to, and he realizes he's at a crossroads. He has to decide what he wants out of his life, and he has to figure out how he can make that happen, because he does not want to be his father. That's just like this thread, this thrust of his character is, I cannot be this. And it's really, there are just a lot of really powerful interactions that he has. You find out that the father actually has many, many families and many, 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 many children. And to an extent, they're all familiar with one another, and he has relationships with some of them, some of whom he goes to for advice. And it's just really, really fascinating every time he talks to somebody about the father. And it's hard to watch in places because it feels really raw. The performance is just really gritty, and you know, you feel for him so much. He is trying to decide if he wants to leave for Los Angeles with his girlfriend try and create this life for himself that will assuredly not make him into his father, or the other option would be to stay and continue to help support the mother and this younger sister that he loves, but is which choice is the right choice? Is he selfish if he wants to improve his own existence? Is it better to sort of sacrifice your happiness for your family? There's just so much that's going on, and it's just a very emotional film with a lot of raw acting, a really, really compelling storyline that's not huge and blockbustery in any way, but that still grabs you, pulls you in, and keeps you with it the entire time of the film. And really, all of the acting is exceptional, all of the performances, but none more so than the young man who plays Johnny. You see all of the doubts and all of the thoughts going on, and you see him struggle. And I love movies like that, where this sort of internal struggle, this difficulty, is apparent without being too heavy-handed. It's just there, and I love that. So if you enjoy films that have really brilliant acting, solid storylines, exceptional directing, if you like quiet films, if you like films exploring unexpected situations, check out Songs My Brothers Taught Me. It really is beautiful and tragic in some ways. Like, there's a sadness that sort of pervades certain moments, and that sort of atmosphere, just there's a beauty in that, and I think it definitely comes across. So make sure you check it out. It's available again on Canopy. Songs My Brothers Taught Me. Highly recommend it. My final recommendation for this week is also on Canopy, and it's for the 2015 film The Saver. Now, this movie had not been on my radar at all. I'd not seen it on any lists. I'd never heard of it. The girl, the team behind it. But the minute I read the description, I knew I had to watch it, and I am super glad that I did, because it is an excellent, excellent movie. The Saver tells the story of Fern. Fern is a young teenager who, up until the point we meet her in the movie, has had not the best life, but has been getting by. She lived with her single mother, who unfortunately tragically passes and leaves Fern orphaned, completely alone, with no sort of safety net. She just has to figure out how to get by, and she does. She, from the get-go, is determined to avoid her mother's fate. She picks up a lot of her mother's house cleaning jobs. She becomes kind of this head of janitorial for an apartment building. She is absolutely going to work her way out of her own situation. And during one of her cleaning jobs, she finds this book, 50 Ways to Become a Millionaire, which tells her all you need to do is save. Now, I don't know how most people would react, but I know I would not necessarily think that this is a sign that I'm going to be able to become a millionaire. But Fern takes this book and really absorbs its information. She takes its advice. She tries to follow its rules. And, you get the sense that if just hard work could do it, she would become a millionaire. So it's this juxtaposition between her drive, her focus, her ambition, her sort of tragic hope to avoid the same sort of stagnant existence that she had to see her mother live in, juxtaposed with the realities of the world that she's living in. Her situation is certainly not going to help her in any way. She comes across these really difficult people and circumstances that make pure drive or just hard work seem ineffectual in a lot of ways. And those moments are difficult, are hard to watch, are amazing, because the young woman who plays Fern does such a good job of expressing all of these emotions when she is facing these situations. And I just honestly was so impressed with this movie. I really, really liked it. I loved her story. I thought Fern herself was just amazing. And if you like films like that really unravel a character, that sees someone facing difficulties and who's trying to fight against the odds, if you enjoy really fine acting, compelling situations, please, please, please check out The Saver. It really was an excellent, excellent movie that I would recommend to anyone. I really did like it so much. So again, The Saver, available on Canopy, very highly recommended. Okay, so those were my recommendations for this week. I, again, had such a good time putting this list together. I got to watch films, some of which I'd heard of before, some of which were totally unfamiliar, and I just honestly really enjoyed these. And there's so many more. I watched quite a few other films um, that I wasn't able to include in these five picks that I would strongly recommend as well. Make sure you check out our video services, CleveNet's Overdrive, Hoopla Digital, and Canopy. So many options available on there for this theme and countless others. Uh, it's just, there's so much to watch on there. You will absolutely find something that you will like through those thousands and thousands of picks. Um, as always, thank you so much for joining me. If you have any recommendations that you would like to share, please, please, please comment and put them down below. If you have themes that you would like to see us cover in the future, please comment with those as well. They always are a huge help to me. And with that, I am going to go ahead and sign off. Again, thank you so much for joining us, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.